Hey everybody, it's Chris Jesty, and joining me again tonight is the illustrious Brad, also known as Deviant Id on the Discords. And tonight we're going to be going over playtest package number 2 that just dropped earlier this morning. It was a day late, but not a dollar short because there's a lot more changes this time around.
Hey, thanks for having me back, Jesty. I was refreshing the screen on the 29th every like hour or two looking for the playtest package.
Oh, I was right there with you every half hour. For me personally, I was refreshing it on my phone. Like, come on, come on.
Yeah, lots of changes here. The first package I think had bigger changes for gameplay. And also I kind of mentioned the first time, what I don't like is rules with lots of like text or niche special case rules. So like that's why I like dropping the side charts so much, separate from the gameplay of the doubling up on the side. Like dropping the chart, I thought was awesome. So as we go through the change in this new playtest, what I want to know is if the new rules make playing the game or learning it easier, like the no +1 heat for standing that they didn't need to test. They just knew that that was a good idea, or if they're adding things to the game with like little gameplay, which kind of undoes the progress made by getting rid of some of the niche stuff like the no +1 standing. And I think we're going to have some good and bad. I know you're a little
Yeah.
more positive than me.
Mainly because it's change for change's sake, but also because they're quality of life changes for the most part. But let's go ahead and get into the first one because we have like 9 of these to go for this playtest packet, as opposed to 2.5 from the last playtest packet.
Fortunately, some of them are really good and really small, so
Yeah,
that's a good thing.
yeah. Number 4 is literally one line.
That's probably one of my favorite ones too.
Mine too. But we're gonna start with number 1. We'll do them in order. And this first one is the change to water hexes. So depth 1 water applies a +1 movement penalty, as per usual, plus any, of course, level changes for going down into depth 1 water. And then depth 2 water applies +2, which I think is normal as well.
Mhm.
The main difference this time around is that if you use walking MP, you no longer generate a PSR when entering a water hex. And if you use running or jumping MP, you generate a PSR. What was that? Yes, running MP
Yeah.
through water. You can now run through water, which is, I think, good.
I I want to be optimistic because I think rules changing to make water more playable are good. Uh, what I don't like, just as like a general, is like the exceptions and special cases that they kind of snuck in. So before we had a very simple no running in water, and now we have running, but with multiple PSRs and stuff and clarifying text. And so I don't I don't mind the change that allows running, but I think all of the extra stuff, like, are you still going to run in water with these changes? Like, you can run out of water, but you could already kind of do that because you weren't entering a hex. So it's mostly like they're still punishing water. So I feel like this is the kind of rule that belongs in TAC ops, reckless movement. Personally, like, yes, you can run because reckless movement already covers a lot of that, where you can run where you normally wouldn't want to, but at taking a penalty in the form of a piloting skill roll when you do it. Adding that as like a core rule, I think is going to give people the impression that you can run in water, and then they're going to run in water, and then it's going to be really bad. Because that's why they got rid of the piloting skill roll per hex with walking. So I just don't like that they then put it right back in.
You know what? See, I'm okay with it because they're giving you more options, and considering how important movement is in this
Mhm.
game, just being able to run and let's say you have a locust or a dasher, now a depth 1 water hex isn't a literal wall of water that you can't run through, that you have to stop if you're using running movement. Now you
Yes.
have more options now faster mechs can take advantage of this. Granted, if you have a 3-5 assault, you can run for all of 2 hexes or whatever.
Yep.
Uh, so you are getting an increased movement speed out of this, but you're going to be taking a PSR per hex ran through, which I think is fine. It is a little wordy, like you're deleting it from the walking, but then you're just transferring it over to running. So I mean, I
Yeah, here's
like
like
the
counter. What if you could just run in water without the piloting skill roll and you didn't need any of that text, right? Like it's just
yeah,
a simple +1 or +2 MP modifier. That's kind of like it feels like adding text to heavy forest, right? Like you can walk and you can run in heavy forest, but here's this special case that happens when you run in this terrain. Like
yeah,
in the a game of armored combat manual is running being that different worth putting in something like a game of armored combat versus just don't have any of that.
I will say I think if you didn't make the PSR mandatory for running through water, people wouldn't notice. Like they would be like, "Oh, this is a good change," because they
Yeah,
added it back in for running. There's going to be a little, I guess it's an okay change. If they just got rid of the PSR for entering water hexes,
it
period,
would.
I think it would
Yeah,
be
it would be
fine.
all positive, right?
Yeah,
Now it's like there's caveats.
because breach checks are the reason why you literally never want to go into water almost
Yeah,
99% of the
that
time.
was my next point. Because I feel like some of these changes are kind of dancing around the real problem, which is breach. So like you're still kind of ruined by breach rolls, and that's what makes the piloting skill rolls so bad in the first place when you're moving in water, right? It's not just that you fall, it's that when you fall, you can drown yourself. And that's
Yeah.
why I don't think like anybody who's moved through water already knows how awful it is to fall and flood your leg, right? And so this doesn't fix that. And it keeps it in the game with the running PSR versus in like a game of armored combat, the little booklet, right? Just no running at all in water does the same thing. Uh, for like the new player experience, you won't have them finding out the hard way what happens when you fail a PSR in water, like just from their normal movement. That's why I say leave it to reckless movement and tac ops because that already covers exactly this situation, like moving faster than you're normally allowed, but with piloting skill rolls all along the way. That's
Yeah.
just
Oh no, I was just gonna say you're absolutely right. That is basically bringing reckless movement into the standard rules.
but only for this. And also, like, I don't think a new player is going to be happy finding out what happens when they run in water versus, like, oh, yeah, us who've been around for a while, right? I'm going to take that skill to Locust and just blaze through the water now. And it's going to be the same effect as no PSR, right? So, like, for me, having the running make a PSR isn't going to change how I play because I was already ignoring it with the things that I want to move fast underwater. It's just like the new player experience. They're not going to know like the ins and outs of how to abuse water, as it were.
Yeah, and I mean that's part of the learning curve of BattleTech. It's the first time you get a mech pushed off the map because you have your
Mhm.
back up to the edge of the map. That's a learning
Yeah,
experience too. So I think it's part and parcel of for the game to learn those hard lessons.
this is
But
just like this one out of all the rules changes. I think I harped on this one the most when I read it, just because it's like a step forward and then a step backwards for me.
and
Because like,
I'm
well,
okay with I'm okay with the penalty or not. I'm sorry, not the penalty, but the word tax, just because it's giving you more options. Period. Now you
mhm,
can run with extra steps when before you could only walk and you had those extra steps. So I'll take it.
and
And
then the other thing that's kind of hidden on here is know when you're standing up, uh, you don't need a piloting skill roll.
now
And
timeout.
so,
Hang on. This
yeah,
was a clarification was made by Zottel, I think, on
already.
the forums. Yeah,
Okay.
because people were interpreting this to mean I get to stand up without a PSR if I am in water, which
That
is
is
incorrect.
exactly what it says.
That
That's
is
why
what it
I have a
says.
problem with it.
But
Okay, go
yeah,
ahead and
that is
clarify.
what it says. But the clarification was standing up in water doesn't generate an additional PSR because of the fact that you are in water like it used to, is
Uh,
basically what it's supposed to mean.
so you still make a PSR for standing.
Yes, correct. You don't get a stand up for free. You still have to make a PSR for standing. You're just not making two of them for being in
I'm
water.
gonna loop back to my main problem, which is that it was too wordy, and say that uh, that is exactly my problem with these rules. Because the PSR, it says in the running, it's for entering a hex, right? So that added text just confused me, and I've been playing for a while, and I totally missed his intention with that rule. Like
Yeah,
I actually had
I,
in my notes, like, what is your intention here?
yeah, I did as well the first time I read it. And then I was like, wait a minute, I don't think this means what I think it means. You never get to stand up for free unless you're a quad mech with all four
Yeah,
legs.
yeah. And
And of
also, there's no extra PSR, even if there is no extra PSR for standing, because it's only when you enter a hex. Standing is not entering a hex. So
yeah,
it's
so
it's
they could literally just delete this whole
yes.
sentence and it would be perfect the way it is.
In fact, it would make the rule more easily understood because I was confused. You were apparently confused. So, and he already had to adjust it. So yeah, that's kind of my. I think that is the perfect summation of my issues with the wordiness of these things because of that
Yeah.
exact thing that just happened. So
Yeah,
there we go.
this is a poster child of making things too wordy. Right here.
Right. Because the added text, which was supposed to clarify a situation, threw my intention of what was happening completely off.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, okay. Well, I'm glad I'm glad there's that. So yeah. Anything else to say about water?
Uh,
I feel better
overall,
about it already, by the
yeah,
way, with that clarification. It's not as bad as I thought.
yeah. Overall, I think water might be something you just never ever go into anymore.
Well,
Now you
yeah.
might actually go into it. As of right now,
Yes.
there's zero reason to go into water unless
Unless
you
you're skilled
absolutely
to,
have to, or
or
you're
skilled
skilled
to,
too.
and
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
trying to cheese it, which
yeah.
I've done.
Yeah, I mean there are some edge cases, but now with your regular 4 or 5 mech, you have reasons to walk through water because you aren't taking that PSR. You're just slowing yourself down
Yeah.
and getting cover out of it.
Yes. So yeah, I agree with you there. Without the extra stuff in, that is a lot nicer.
All right, I think that's about it for number one. We spent a decent amount of time on that one because
Water,
it
that one,
is kind of
yeah.
controversial. Well, not
Well,
controversial,
and
but you know,
confused.
yes, yeah.
The intention was not clear. So yeah,
All
the
right.
rest should be a little easier.
All right. Number two, backward level changes are now allowed. So this is a rule we use on a regular basis on the
Mhm.
MRC. I use it almost every time I play. If I run something, this rule was an optional rule, and I always had it as on or active, whatever you want to call it. And now they're just adding it to the base rules.
Yeah. So we both had in the past played with this rule, and we already had like a difference of opinion on it. My thing with this rule in the past, and it's the same rule, but the one thing they changed was there's no -1 to the piloting skill roll now, uh, which does help because that was one of my complaints about it before. But my main complaint still remains in that when is this rule used? Like they're adding it to the core rule book. So it's taking up book space. It's something players have to remember. Um, and failing that piloting skill roll in the middle of your movement, like if you're not used to the game, can be a negative experience, right? So in my experience, and Jesty, you tell me when you've used this rule, but when I've used this rule, it was specifically on slow sniper assault mechs to pop up and down off of hills while only walking to take advantage of cover and kiting. How about you? When have you actually used that rule?
I actually use this rule pretty consistently, honestly. I can recall some specific moments where I kind of got caught with my pants down because I didn't realize it backwards level change was not on, and I literally walked into a corner and was stuck because I was expecting to be able to back up and with my sun bear, I was not able to. So I actually take advantage of backward level changes on a regular basis, and because I use them on more of my brawling mechs or like my skirmishers, not necessarily a fat sniper that's going to just sit in the back and play whack-a-mole with between behind level 1 hills or level 2, or you know what I mean, behind
Yeah, yeah.
elevation with cover.
Yep.
I actually use this all the time, and I usually take the risk at -1 PSR at a 4 or a 3, depending on what my piloting is. And I'm like, yeah, I got this. I'll just back up. Now that they're getting rid of the -1, I may not utilize it as much because it was a pretty consistent maneuver I would do on a regular basis, honestly.
So the in the Sun Bears case, right? You could have still gotten off that hill, but you would have had to run.
Uh,
Is kind of what I've noticed in my gameplays.
yeah,
Like
I
you'd have
would.
to turn around, run. Your facing wouldn't be ideal. So basically, like you wanted your Sun Bear to back up and still have its facing the enemy and not take the run penalty, right?
Yeah, I was the specific situation. I had two mechs on me in
Mhm.
melee, and
Right.
it was that had already moved into melee with me, and I
Yes.
was getting ready to back up the hill, and I could not. So I literally had to turn around, and I couldn't return fire with my AC with my UAC 20.
Right. Because you had to run off the hill.
Yeah,
So
well, where I had
that's
to run up the hill because I was right
well,
in
yeah.
front of a
Okay.
level one. Same
Yeah.
thing, but yeah, same
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah. Yeah. You had to make a level change and you had to run to do it instead of just walking backwards to get the cut. Yeah. So that's
Yeah,
kind of you were a little faster than my awesome example, but it's kind of the same thing where uh, somebody moved and boxed you in, and the backwards move let you get out of that without needing like forward momentum. So that's kind of my issue with the rule is that it takes away from the forward momentum of the game. Um, because if you could walk like with hills specifically, because of like in the case of that with melee, you can also like if you're going up or down hills, that changes melee situations a lot with kicks to head, especially, or being able to dodge a kick. It always felt like if you had to run to turn around and then move off, and you're kind of out of position, well, that was the price you paid for last turn, making that move the way you did, and then getting caught, right? So it always felt like the backwards movement change when it was working as intended was just kind of like a get out of jail free. It took away from the maneuver part of the game, like the turn by turn. If I go here, am I going to get caught next turn, kind of thing. That's always my issue with it, like
Uh,
from a kiting point of view.
and from the kiter's point of view, I see this as kind of mandatory. There's a lot of mechs that I don't think would function properly
Mhm.
without this.
Yeah,
And
well, because with jump jets you can just kite backwards easily.
yeah, I mean, anything that can jump is ignoring this. So this
Yeah,
is only really important for landbound mechs. You could
yeah,
take advantage of it if you wanted to jump and maintain your your walking TMM instead of getting the +2 or 3 for jumping.
right.
But the majority of the time I would use this, it's on a 5'8" movement profile mech that can't jump, or a 6'9" like a Ryukin, something like that. Those
Where
are
you want to be
usually
able to keep your facing instead of
yes,
running the turn.
exactly. Normally it would be because either I charged in for an objective or something, and now I'm doing a fighting retreat to get back out.
Right. Yeah. So
So it
that's kind of where it's going to come down to with this, where because the rule is already in the game. It was just attack ops rule, right? And
yeah.
so like we're just on different. It's neither good nor bad in my opinion. It's kind of just different. I don't like it for new players from like that new player point of view, just because uh, adding piloting skill roles to new players to manage, I think is just asking for them to have a bad time.
I
Uh,
mean, it's the running in water thing. You're running
yeah,
with scissors, essentially. Like you're
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
learn the hard way
Well, yeah,
if you
yeah,
keep doing this.
exactly. But like, I don't want, I don't want to be handing new players scissors. Does that make sense?
No, I completely understand where you're coming from,
That's
and
why I preferred it as an optional rule.
Yeah, and it's an optional rule that those of us who play consistently generally just have it on,
Yeah,
at least in the MRC. So
yeah,
for me, I see this as just giving more options. Just like
yeah,
now you can run through water, now you can back up over or down off of a hill. I mean, it's just
yeah.
more options for movement.
And I see it as giving scissors to a baby and waiting for the inevitable crying.
Yeah, and say essentially running through the water with your mech and then
Yes,
falling and taking a
yes,
breach roll to something, and you're like,
yes.
"What the hell just happened?"
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, for I guess it's the difference between like base rules, like out of a game of Armored Combat, versus advanced rules, right? So, this feels like an advanced rule, just like running through water feels like an advanced rule. It doesn't feel like a core rule book rule. But anyway,
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And these are rules that are just giving more movement options. And
yeah, which
all
feels which feels like an advanced rule thing to me.
and since movement is so important in the game, I just see more options as, good all around.
Yeah,
If you can learn to utilize these maneuvering tools, you'll become a better player.
yeah. So
For
then,
learning games, you're absolutely right. Maybe don't let them do these things, or say, I would caution you against doing that because it can go wrong.
yeah, it's it it's a good thing to have in the game, especially when you're trying to balance jump, since jump can do it already. I just don't think it's like a core rule book rule that a new player needs to learn on their first movement of the game, right? Like, here's your movement, here's how you do this, here's how you move backwards, and then when you move backwards, you have to make a piloting skill roll. Like that feels like one step too far for like the new player experience. I think we both agree for advanced play, it's fine, right? Like we
Absolutely.
play with
Yeah.
it all the time. We play with it with the PSR modifier, right? So
Yeah.
it's even different. There's one of my complaints in the past was that it had a modifier in the first place, which was another thing you had to remember because it doesn't come up that often. So getting rid of the modifier, I actually really like that. Um, I think that that's how it should always have been, just because other terrain has a piloting skill movement to enter. So this is just kind of like it keeps it all samey. I just don't like the advanced versus core distinction. But anyway,
Yeah.
that's just
No, you're absolutely right. That is a valid concern when it comes to the burden of knowledge for new players and all that. I am going to miss my -1 to PSRs from going backwards level changes, but looking into some of these other changes, I think I'll manage.
right.
Next up is the immobile definition change. This one I consider probably the biggest, most impactful of the changes here. So I'm just going to read this. So there's an immobile now has a definition change. An immobile mech cannot be assigned a movement selection. Treat it as being destroyed for the purposes of calculating the number of mechs per side when determining movement selections. So now, if you have an immobile unit, you are down that unit for movement and it is not an initiative sync. So note, immobile status does not prevent the mech from firing its weapons. Fire selections can still be assigned to an immobile mech as long as the mech is not shut down or does not have an unconscious mech warrior. So you can still shoot. You're still there in the shooting phase. You just don't exist in the movement phase. So this leads to some interesting things. So we'll finish the definition. The following are immobile: buildings, hexes, mechs reduced to 0 MP entirely due to damage. We'll get into that later because this is going to get a little interesting. And then mechs shut down or with an unconscious mech warrior. The following are not immobile: mobile mechs that choose to stand still, as usual, prone but mobile mechs, as usual, And then mechs reduced to 0 MP by heat, which I think is still the same. And then also mechs with a destroyed gyro are not considered immobile. And then it says, unless a situation specifically states the target is immobile, it is not. So, jumping, a mech with 0 walking or running move points can still jump if it is not shut down or does not have an unconscious mech warrior. And occupied hexes, a mech that can move through a hex containing, oh, I'm sorry, a mech can move through a hex containing an immobile enemy mech, unless the immobile mech is a super heavy mech. Distinction there. I mean, I get it, but I mean, just delete that unless portion, and it's fine. It doesn't need the super heavy distinction. I get it. It's thematic and all that, but it's just more rules for the sake of more rules and making super heavies that rarely see play more interesting and having extra stuff tied to them.
So for me, like the first thing right off the bat, it's easier to immobilize things, right? Uh,
Yeah, I mean, we need to get into some of these other changes.
yes, yes. Well, first, right off the bat, you take mobile units out of initiative. And I have on my notes listed it's like a nothing rule because we don't know the new initiative rules. Uh,
So
and
in the Tuesday Newsday today, Zodal was taking questions, and I asked in the chat, like, "Hey, what about front loaded? I heard you guys were considering," and he said, "Yes, they are considering front loaded initiative. If you have seen the playtest stuff that was not
Mhm.
released, the unofficial stuff, there was a thing in there for what I call super front loaded initiative." And if
Uh,
that's the case, that means this new immobile definition and immobile mechs not counting for initiative will have zero effect if that rule goes into effect.
yeah. So that, like in my notes, what I have here now, without the new rules, if you lose initiative and one of your units is immobilized, before you would count it as an initiative, they would move one, you would move one, they would move one in the end. With the rule as written now, where it doesn't count, you move one and they double team you and move two. So obviously, I don't like that. I would prefer mobile units count as one of your activations because equal activations is the only balanced way to do initiative. Front
Yeah.
loaded is not going to fix that, right? Because the way front loaded works, if there's a double or a triple unit disadvantage, front loaded doesn't do anything. That's why I don't like front loaded because it usually does nothing in the 2v1 situation. It only helps in like a 3v2.
Yeah.
So in a
I mean,
2v2 with front loaded, you'll move one because you lost initiative, and they're still going to move two. In the leaked possible playtest rules, they did have a solution where the person who outnumbers moves all their units until you get equal unit count, and then you go 1 for 1 because 1 for 1 is the most balanced. And
yeah. And
so,
it's regardless of who wins initiative, if you
yes,
outnumber them by more than
yes,
a period, actually, you
yes.
move a unit first.
And yeah, you move units until you have equal unit count, and that's where initiative is balanced, and then you go 1 for 1 with equal unit count. So obviously, I like that rule, but that is a rule that is only designed for like 4 to 6 units per side. Obviously, if you play 24 units versus 6 units because somebody's spamming infantry and cheap vehicles, uh, that initiative rule is problematic. But that's not, we don't balance for the Savannah Master Swarm, right? Like the Savannah Master Swarm is its own problem. So that's why I like the new initiative rules because it's like it doesn't fix the Savannah Master Swarm because that is a separate issue. But
Yeah,
anyway,
even I mean, even in the current initiative, the Savannah Master Swarm is
yes,
still a problem. So
yes,
I mean,
and
nothing's
front loaded
changing there.
doesn't, right, and front loaded doesn't fix the Savannah Master Swarm either because they outnumber you 6 to 1, and it's exactly the same. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah. you're still going to get surrounded and not be able to move unless
Yes.
you can jump.
It's yeah, exactly. Front loaded doesn't fix that problem. Regular initiative, obviously, it's a problem. And then the new initiative rules, it's a different kind of problem. So that is, you can't, in my opinion, use the Savannah Master Swarm as an example of anything because it's a separate problem. So that's why the immobile change here, like it's a nothing rule because without the initiative, it's like technically a net negative because it
Yeah.
makes your initiative worse, but that's only because we don't have the rest of the initiative rules.
Yeah. So as it stands by itself right now, regardless of whether or not you're using the current front loaded or standard initiative, this is what I call, or what basically the game design industry calls, a lose more rule. So you're already losing because now you have an immobile unit for some reason. Either it's
Yeah,
taken crits to no longer have walking MP, or it's unconscious, or what have you, or the mech shut down from overheating. You're already in a bad situation, and now they just made it worse by not letting you sync with this and at least seeing where a bare minimum of one of your opponent's units has moved
right.
before moving the rest of your units.
Exactly. I guess that's why for this playtest, it's really tough to evaluate that rule, other than to say like it's half baked
Yeah,
because
no,
we're missing.
without the proposed super front loaded initiative change, this is a bad change. Straight
Yeah,
up, this is not good.
because it just makes losing, like you said, lose more. Right.
Yeah, and with the change, this makes zero difference
Difference.
because
Yes.
you weren't gaining anything by syncing initiative with
Yes.
this anyway.
Right. So that's why, like, if they just didn't have this, you could just delete that rule, and in the new initiative, it's the same, like you said. And if you delete something and the game is the same, then it's just kind of bloaty. And the opposite is they don't take the new initiative rules into account, and then it's just bad for the player who's on the back foot.
Yeah, exactly. So overall, I'd say this is not great as it stands now, according to
Yeah.
the packet,
Yes.
but we'll put a pin in it later on
Yes.
once all this is said and done and come back to it.
Right.
Uh,
But
speaking of,
best case scenario, it does nothing, which
yeah,
is not a good place to be.
Yeah, it makes no difference. The only thing it does do is speed up the turn because now you don't have to waste the 10 seconds saying, I moved
Yeah.
my annihilator by not moving.
Yes. Yeah.
Uh,
So
so we'll put a pin in this and we'll come back to this in a little bit because there's some changes that do affect this immobile definition
yeah.
upcoming. But we'll move on to number 4, which
On
is
to
the
number
most.
4. Oh, sorry. There is one thing I just want to point out that you can move through mobile units now, which is fine, right? But then they put in the clause that it doesn't apply to super heavy because of no reason. 105 tons in a 30-meter hex is not like that's another bloaty exception that I don't like. You could delete that and the game is better for it.
Yeah, we're on the same boat there. I said basically the same thing. Like this doesn't need to exist. Super heavies already have enough complicated rules and regarding
Yes.
them. And if you want to bring stuff like super heavies and tripods into the main rule book, you can't be adding crap like this. That's a whole nother line of text that doesn't need to be there.
So change 4. This is a great one.
Yeah. Piloting skill roll modifier for a damaged gyro is reduced from 3 to 2. I wish all of the changes were this succinct and clear. This is
Right?
great.
Like, uh, this is a great playtest rule because it's one line of text, no exceptions, no like extra notes and whatnot. It's just like straightforward. I can't be confused like I was terribly confused with the ammo rules, and they had to be clarified, or the water rules. So yeah, nice, simple. Um, the thing about gyro hits is that +2 is still going to be bad, right? So I think people who are seeing this rule and are expecting a big positive change to the game are going to be disappointed because if you get turn 1 gyroed, needing a 7 or an 8 to stay standing still sucks, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just a minor percent difference. It is better, don't get me wrong. And two gyro hits is still just as terrible as before, right? Uh,
Yeah, you're flopping on the ground at that point.
yes, you can't ever stand up again. And it still stacks with like the 20 damage you take. So if you get a gyro hit and you take 20 damage, you know, and you're looking at an 8 versus 9. Like, yes, that is one better number. But when you look at like what you're actually going to roll, it's you're not going to see this difference in most of your rolls. Like you roll a 5, you still failed because the gyro +2 or +3 doesn't matter. So it feels deceptively like a big buff, and it is a buff. It's just not that big of a percent difference.
Yeah, and
However,
it's something
yeah,
that doesn't happen on a regular basis either. A gyro crit
yes,
it doesn't happen every game, let alone, every tournament. You might go a whole tournament without getting
without getting,
anybody having a
yeah,
gyro crit.
right. So this does the thing that I like is it takes a tiny bit of the sting out of that one critical hit to your gyro. It doesn't fix the two critical hits to your gyro on turn one from an AC2. That still happens, and you're still gonna, basically lose that mech in your backfield. But it does take a little bit of the sting out of a gyro hit, which is a good thing, right?
Yeah, I think
Flopping on the
it's
ground a tiny, tiny percent less.
yeah, I think it's a good change. It's going to mean less
Yep.
bad feels when that golden BB hits you, and you'll be more inclined to make those stand up rolls and running with the broken gyro rolls and
Well,
all
yeah,
that.
keep your mech in the game, keep playing the game. Uh, but my favorite thing about the rule by far is it's one line and that's it.
Yeah, I think that covers everything for this one. This was a good one, a nice,
Yeah,
short, and sweet one.
yeah, absolutely.
On to number 5, foot actuator critical hit. Okay, this one, I know you have strong feelings about this one, so I'll
There,
let you go ahead and go
yeah.
into it.
So my feelings for this one is it's kind of like that problem where you get something, but you got a gift, but it like you wanted a PlayStation, but you got like an Xbox. It's like, oh, I really wanted a PlayStation. Uh, so it's not a PSR, but it's still +1 to kicks and still -1 MP. So now, if you get crit in your leg, you have one location that's not as bad to be crit in. So, like when somebody's rolling a crit on your leg, you can now go, I hope they roll my foot, right? It was already kind of the best, but now it's like clearly you want them to hit your foot. The foot is the thing that is the best result for you. Uh, but the thing I don't like is that we still have three separate entries for leg actuators. Some are +1 to kicks with the foot, some are +2 with half damage for kicks. Uh, Now, some are piloting skill rolls, and some are just movement modifier rolls. So while I think the foot change is positive, I wish that all of the actuators work the same way instead, just to make it so that there's two less entries in the critical hit thing. But that's just me like getting a gift and it's great, but it could have been even greater.
Yeah, no, I get you. It's the crit you want when you get crit in the
Mhm.
leg, unless you've got like a jump jet or a heat sink in there and you're willing to lose it.
Right.
Uh,
But I still have to look up what a lower leg actuator does versus a foot. Because like how often for the new player are they going to remember that lower leg actuators are +2 to kick instead of +1, right?
yeah, exactly. It's just
They're
more burden of knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. Uh, it's not a change that simplifies the game. Um, so like it's a change for change sake. The thing is, the foot interacts with some of the other changes coming up, which is where I think the foot change matters more. Because
Yeah.
we're going to see as we go forward that there's other changes to the leg that makes the foot change better for the game. Because on its own, the foot change is just whatever.
Yeah, hang on. Let me do a little bit of a gripe here. I'm in the Battle
No?
Mech manual right now, and I'm looking at foot actuator leg right next to arm blown off arm.
Yeah.
Why the hell do I have to scroll down another extra half a page to go to leg blown off, and then
Yep.
another half a page to go down to hip leg, and then
And then
another half
lower
a
leg.
page to go down to lower leg, and then
Yes.
another half a page to go down to upper leg? Why aren't all of these just under leg? And then
Yeah.
you have all of them listed under leg, and then same thing for arm. That is
Even if you
okay.
didn't change the rules to it, right? Like having them all separated like that, like you said, the burden of knowledge, like for the new player to find what they're looking for, it just takes a little bit longer. It could have been better. It's just, it's not quite perfect, right?
Yeah,
it could have been better.
what they need is like a little screenshot uh of the actual record sheet that is
Yeah,
of
yeah.
the leg, and then a little line going to each of the locations and what happens when they
Right?
get crit, all on the same
The
page.
the visual, the yes, that is what's missing is the visual connection to things. 100%.
Yeah, all right, so end of rant, sorry.
Yeah. We're both in agreement about that.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and move on to probably the second biggest change, if not the biggest, that's actually going to come up in more games than not: the
Yeah.
hip actuator critical hit.
Yeah. And it's tied into a mobile, which is what you said the other biggest change is.
Yeah. So a critical hit to a mix hip destroys the hip actuator. Yeah, yeah. The mech can no longer make kick attacks. That's all normal.
Mhm.
Additionally, the hip actuator reduces the current mech's walking MP by half,
Yep. Round it up.
with a minimum walking MP loss of 2.
Yeah. I wish he had highlighted that in red, the minimum -2, because that's like one of the big changes.
So, what this means is if you have an urban mech or
Yes.
an annihilator that
Yep.
gets a hip crit, they are now technically immobile.
Yes. Well, they're also at 0 MP just because before, like half of 2 is 1, right? But now
Yeah.
half of 2, minimum of 2 is 0. Um, and the other thing is that it doesn't stack with the that leg, but it does stack with the other leg. So let's say you're a 3-5 and you got your foot crit, which is -1, and then you take a hip, which is half minimum -2. So your dire wolf now also goes to 0 because it got a hip on one side and it got a foot on the other. Whereas before it would be a 1-2 because half of 3 rounded up is 2 and then -1 for the foot. So it wouldn't have been at 0 before.
Yeah. And so you could still technically run with the urban mech.
Yeah.
As of now, you're just straight up immobile.
Yes. And a mobile is awful.
Yeah.
But
-4 to be shot.
yeah.
That is not good.
Yeah. And it's the combination of the hip and the immobile that makes it so different. Um, the other
Granted,
thing, now I don't mind slow things like getting penalized more. It's just the specific interaction, right? Because
yes.
through armor crits are actually pretty common because you can get them with mask rolls, right? Mask rolls generate leg crits, and leg attacks from battle armor generate leg crits.
Yep.
So, what is the number one thing that battle armor like to make leg attacks on? Big slow mechs.
Yep. Your annihilator, your urban mech, anything that can't
Yep.
get away from the jump 3 of those
Yep.
battle armor is at their mercy once they're
Yes.
in range.
And that was already true, but then you add on a mobile on top of that, and it's pretty night night for the slow mech. Like an Atlas, you take a foot crit, like I said, and then a hip crit in the next turn from that battle armor, and now you're at 0. And then 2 leg attacks, and then an immobile Atlas is a dead Atlas.
Yeah, and you still have to, get those crit rolls. It's not something that's a guarantee,
No.
but it is something that can and does happen on a fairly semi-regular basis.
And before, 2 hip crits would put you at 0, but the old rules specifically call out being at 0 MP is not a mobile. And
Yes.
now they went backwards on that.
Yeah, and that is a huge change. So
Yeah.
there is a caveat. I do have the playtest feedback forums up,
Got
and
me again.
someone asked if the mech can jump and it's at 0 MP, is it a mobile? Because clearly it's not. It can jump.
Yeah.
And Zoldal's response was, when you make a movement selection, you also assign it a movement mode. If you can jump and want to jump, you can make a movement selection which involves jumping, and thus you wouldn't be immobile for that turn. But you
Yeah.
can't pick ground movement. Otherwise, it's no different than picking a unit with ground movement that can move and then choosing it to stay still. The option exists across all valid movement modes. So basically, what he's saying is that if you
If
have
you
a
jump,
mech, yeah, if you jump, you are considered for, you have a
you're
movement slot. If you
yeah,
do
you're
not
not moving.
jump, then
Mhm.
you don't count for initiative. Which, when would you decide? He said I think further down he said he has to work on the timing. Yeah, I'll address the timing issues in the first packet update right there. Bam.
Yeah.
But
I
honestly,
honestly don't like any of that.
I don't think you should be immobile if you can still jump with just a hip crit. On
Yeah.
an urban mech should not be getting an extra -4 to hit just because you bonked it in the hip. It's already not moving very fast to begin with. I mean, it
Yeah.
jumping is a valid form of movement. It is not immobile. I completely disagree with that assessment.
I also it shouldn't matter whether you have jump jets or not, in my opinion. Like one hip crit making you immobile, I think is still like the I mean, it's an urban mech, right? Like it doesn't actually matter, but it is weird that you're immobile unless you jump and then you're not immobile. Like that's just all around weird.
Yeah,
And
and
it's going to be exceptions to exceptions, and I don't like that. It's more words.
yeah, and another stealth update that is actually on the forums because I was reading them earlier. So I'm
Mhm.
sorry, I'm pulling from these without giving you a heads up.
Yeah, that's fine.
The minimum movement rule is effectively gone for
Yeah.
these hip actuator crit
Okay.
mechs. He said, under these rules, yes, you are considered immobile if your movement goes down to 0 through hip actuator or leg crits. He says this may be revised when the packet revision comes out.
Hmm. Yeah.
So it may change in the next couple days or weeks, but as of right now, you are immobile if you get reduced down to 0 walking MP. Period.
Yeah. See,
Unless it's
I
from heat or those
well, yeah,
other
yeah.
exceptions.
I,
Yeah.
but there's exceptions on exceptions. I just don't like that rule at all. I think 0 MP making you immobile combined with the hip change that now has because before, let's say you were a 2/3 and you got a hip crit, you're 1/2, right? And then you got another hip crit. Now you're 0. You would be 0.5, right? One divided by two is half, but it rounds up. You're still 1/2, right? So you would have to take a hip and a leg, and then you'd go down to 0. But explicitly, you were not immobile uh,
Yeah.
because you
You were
just
still
you
flopping
still a
around,
leg.
basically.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Uh, whereas now, if you're at 0 MP because of heat, somehow that's different than 0 MP because of a hip crit. Like I just don't.
Yeah.
I
That doesn't
actually
make
like
any sense.
Yeah, I actually like so the second hip crit in the past would make you 0. And I actually like that they changed it to it's just half again. Because that removes an exception from the like they needed to have a line of text saying because the first line of text for rules for hips is if you get a hip crit, you're half movement, right? And it doesn't stack with that leg. And then they had to put an exception if you get another hip crit, now you're at 0. Whereas now it's just you get halved again because the hip is a hip and doesn't you don't need an exception saying what happens when you get two hips. You just apply the normal rule.
Yeah. And that
So
makes perfect sense. And
yeah,
it
I
also
like
means you still can maneuver at least a little bit on these fast mechs. It's not an instant death sentence.
Yes. So you can, like, if you have a 7-11 mech, like you take a hip crit, you go down to 4-6. You take another hip crit, you go down to 2-3, right? Same thing with, yeah, 4-6, and then you take another hip crit and you go down to 2-3. So I think that's great, right? I actually don't mind that at all. It's the automatic -2. That's part of the problem because a 4/6 mech uh, with the automatic -2 goes to 2, and then another hip crit goes to 0, and it's immobile, and now it's dead. You did 2 crits to it, and it dies. I just don't like that.
Yeah, I mean, the odds of getting both of your hips crit on a fresh mech are fairly slim. If you're getting
Right.
crits from exposed, you know, inner structure, then that's par for the course. Yeah,
Well, yeah,
your
you're
your
probably
mech's
gonna die.
on.
You're probably already dead. Yeah.
Yeah, at that point, it doesn't really matter, does it? But
Yeah.
the the edge cases where you get both of those hips through tax or
Mhm.
leg attacks with battle armor are just so punishing.
Yes. Yeah. It's because of the combination of 0 MP making you immobile and a minimum of -2.
And
So
it's
like,
not just the two hit crits. I mean, there's
yeah.
multiple ways to
Oh
get
yeah.
to 0 if you're
Right.
slow enough. Even
Yeah.
5/8 mechs are not safe from this.
Yeah. You take, let's say you don't hit your hip at all, right? They just hit your foot and your lower leg actuators a few times. Your Timberwolf absolutely could go down to 0 MP because you got a couple foot and lower leg actuator hits on both legs.
Yep. And
Oh,
now
it's
you're
not
at
even that hard.
-4 and you're
Yep.
basically just dead.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. So yeah, but that's going back to the immobile rule. Like you said, we're gonna have to revisit it.
Yeah,
So
it's gonna be a recurring topic. So
yes, exactly. But like for the hip crits itself, uh, the half and then half again with the hip, that part I like because it's actually technically removing a rule, right? About hip into hip is this special exception where it's 0 instead of no, just hip is half, round up, and do that as many times as you have hip injuries. So I like that part of the rule change. The minimum -2 MP loss, I don't see why that's there. Um,
yeah, that only punishes slower mechs harder than every other mech out there.
right.
Or well, than
Uh,
anything faster than it. You know what I mean?
yes, and it doesn't fix the problem that sometimes getting a hip crit adds to your movement because in the past and now, if you have a foot, a lower, and an upper, that's -3 movement. And then if you're something like a 3/5, that puts you at 0. And then they hit your hip, and you're like, oh, thank God they hit my hip. Now it's just half. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
because
the
it
hip,
overwrote all those other three
yeah.
crits.
So the hip still has the overriding problem of the hip sometimes being a good thing for you. They didn't fix that niche case, right? Which is whatever. Uh, and the piloting skill rolls now stack. So that's the other change in this, which is I think that's a positive thing. A hip is only a +1, right, for piloting skill roll purposes. So they
Yeah, it
made
used
it
to be a
better.
+2,
It
right?
used to be, yeah, it used to be a +2, but it also used to overwrite all the others.
Yeah,
So the thing is that overwriting all the others is worth less now because of the foot change. So before overwriting the others uh, with a foot lower and upper, that was a -3, right? And so you get your hip hit and it goes to a -2. But now it's just lower and upper leg because the foot doesn't give a -2. So it doesn't really make that big of a difference. All it does is mean that your first hip crit and no other damage on your mech is better. If you take like the one random unlucky through armor crit
yeah,
from one of the many ways you can have that happen. So
yeah.
that
I
I
mean,
think is good. Like the one random hip crit is not as bad as it used to be.
unless you're a 2/3 mech. That's the
Yes.
only
Well,
exception.
yeah. And that goes back to that minimum -2 change, which I don't like.
Yeah,
Because
I
like
don't like that either.
and that's where a lot of these rules, like they're counter to their own purpose. Like, what's your intention here, right? Like, are hips supposed to be a good, like not as bad to get hit? Because the -2 minimum, it makes that not so, right? But all the other rules make it better to get hit in the hip once. So I
Yeah.
just don't know what they're trying to do here.
Yeah, this is real confusing from an
Yeah,
outside looking in. Like
yeah.
they're
What do you want?
yeah,
The other thing,
exactly.
so this is an example of the word bloat. The old hip rule was 183 words, and the new one is 305. And as you look at the hip, this is like a really good example of what I like and don't like. It's like this conversational style. So he has an example of
Yeah,
the in
we
italics,
can.
but
Yeah,
then if
want
you
me to just read
scroll
through
up,
the example real quick? That
well,
way.
no, scroll up first. Um, he also has that same example in the rules text. For example, a mech with a walking MP of 6 and a running. So what he's doing, like the italics, I love, right? Because it's a separate section, it's in a conversational style, it adds more context, right? But don't put that in the rule, like leave that to the italics. The rule should be very cut and dry. Like you said before, make it read like code because I want to know at a glance, right? Uh, Not counting the italics, it's 305 words. With the italics, it's more. The reason why I think word count is so important is when you glance at the rule, it's more to have to read before you get to the end, right? Like, okay, what happens in the hip crit? Read, okay, pass over this example, but then because the example is mixed in with the text, if you pass over the example so you can get to the meat of the rule, you are very likely to miss part of the rule because the example has the rules all in one paragraph. And
Yeah,
yeah,
and one thing to note, it still does not apply to PSR modifiers. Those all still stack with the
yes,
other modifiers. I don't remember if it was in this one or another one, but
it's coming
uh,
up. Yeah.
okay, it's coming up. So we'll just go. Oh yeah, it's the very next one. Okay. Oh, and we missed. Well, not I shouldn't say really missed, but for there's other modifiers. So it's +1 per hip actuator destroyed. That's the PSR modifier. We just didn't
Yep.
look at the text.
Well, yeah, that we were saying it's +1 instead of +2.
Yeah,
Uh, and
and
then the
then
quad mech, I don't think that that's a change.
yeah, I don't think so. It says a quad mech with at least one hip critical
Yeah,
hit can no longer ignore the target number modifier for firing while prone, which I think you could do as
you
long as
could
you
not
had all
before.
four legs.
No, you couldn't do that before with a hip crit. It's in the battle mech manual. That part didn't change. The part now that I'm reading it again, that changed is so when you go down to hip and the four-legged sections, you have to scroll back up. Four-legged quad mech with a hip is able loses the ability to do the
Yeah, ignore the target number modifier
being
for
prone.
firing while prone. Okay, so
What
that
they
didn't even
did,
change.
what changed in that rule, which is why I wish he would put red text on what the actual change is. You can, if your front legs have a hip crit, you can still kick backwards, and if your back legs have a hip crit, you can still kick forwards.
Yeah, that's not in the old text. So
Yes, and that's why I wish, like, we don't need all of that other text for the playtest, and that should not be buried with the other stuff, like for just readability.
yeah, like this should be either bold or, like you said,
Right.
red,
Red.
something to show
That's
the difference.
because that's the actual change.
Yeah,
And I think that's a good change. I'm fine with that being a change. It's a little niche, right? I'm not
yeah,
a huge fan of super niche rules, but
but as
quad
a
mech
quad mech,
specifically, yeah,
yeah, as a quad mech aficionado, I can appreciate this. And now I can still kick even if I have
yeah,
one hip crit.
because kicks are like punches, so it's like because you can't punch with a quad, so it makes it this rule kind of makes sense.
Yeah, yeah,
Your front kicks are like your punches, so if you take a hip crit to your back leg, you can still kick forward.
yeah. And
So yeah,
I still
I
think
think
you
that's
should be able to rear up on two legs and get two kicks because you're in a quad
fine.
mech. But
Yeah, yeah,
that can stay in Fantasyland tac ops
right.
with SPAs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and then of
Uh,
course 4 hip critical hits automatically reduce a quad mech's MP to 0 and render it immobile.
yeah,
I
I
mean, at
think
that
that that
point,
doesn't need to be there because that will never happen.
yeah,
You'll
the mech
already
will
be
die.
immobile before that. Well, no, even with four hip crits, you will already be immobile, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Even
with
the
the new
celerity,
immobile changes, just
yeah,
2 hip crits and you're already immobile,
like a
basically.
celerity is 15, I think. So 15 goes to 8. for one hit crit, 8 goes to 4, 4 goes to 2, and the fourth one brings you down to 0. So I
Yeah.
don't like, I guess for the theoretical 20 movement quad, right? Like it's just, it feels like a niche extra little
Yeah,
rule.
I mean, I get it. It's future proofing, but it doesn't need to be there in case there
Like,
ever is a 20 movement quad that
yeah, right.
exists.
Yeah, a 20 movement quad. Okay, then we maybe need this rule. Uh, but yeah, sure. Right? It doesn't make a difference either way. It's just more words.
Yeah. And that can just be under the quad mech section. It doesn't have to be,
Well, you could just remove that entirely and it won't impact the game.
yeah, and it makes no difference. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Like, because let's say you do come out with a 20 movement quad, right? Who really cares if the 20 movement quad is a mobile with 4 hip crits or at 1, right?
Yeah,
Like
at that
it's such a
point,
niche, right? It's future proofing for a mech that will never exist, and even if it does exist, it's not a big deal.
yeah, I mean, the mech will probably have one armor in every location if it's moving that fast
Yeah,
and
you
will
know what I mean?
die
Like,
to a stiff
yeah,
breeze.
right. Like, it's way too niche of a situation to qualify for a sentence in a rule book, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can see that. Completely unnecessary.
Yeah.
All right,
Cumulative
moving.
leg PSRs. Yeah.
Yeah, so it says it right there in the title: cumulative
Yeah.
leg PSR effects.
I uh I again we have the italic texts, which I love. Keep keep the italic text with the conversational styles separate from the rules. Um, the thing about this rule is that it does not stop cumulative PSRs overall. So I
Yes.
this is the situation where why is this here, right? Like let's say you get a leg crit, right? If they roll a box car for 3 crits, your leg's just gone. So it doesn't apply in that
Uh
case.
Timeout. Hang
Nope.
on.
Oh
We
no.
have to. Yeah, oh no, indeed. We have to go back to the forums real quick because there is a post about that right here: leg destroyed or blown off.
Oh my god.
So there is currently a vote on the forums that Zodal has set up. And basically the way the long and short of it is, do you want a separate section for a 12 on the crit result to a floated leg location, or internal damage turned into a crit uh leg location to be leg blown off, or just 3 crits to keep it consistent with non-limb
Well,
locations?
I want one less harsh status to playtest leg destroyed only. Oh, it doesn't do 3 crits. It says it's just your leg is destroyed.
Yeah, yeah. So as of right now,
Okay.
yeah, you can vote yes or you can vote no. I only want one Leshar status with playtest leg destroyed status only.
Right. So just to reiterate, the current status for losing a leg is you're reduced to 1 MP and um, that's it basically. Oh, it's +5 to your piloting skill roll. Uh,
Yeah,
but
currently.
that is, yes, that's coming up in the leg
Yeah,
destruction. So you're
yeah,
getting a
that's
little
literally the
cheeky.
next one.
Right. So the difference is one
But I
extra
mean,
harder on the PSR from 4 to 5. If we keep the boxcar versus normal leg destruction, and half MP instead of you're reduced down to 1 MP. Um, but in both cases, a boxcar still destroys the leg. There's some weird thing that I didn't know about. More special case rules. You know already how I feel about more special case rules on top of rules.
correct. So it it ends up being, the question for this really edge case rule is, do you want leg blown off to remain so that it's probably going to function the way it does now, where you're down to 1 MP and you
with
have
a
one
separate
leg?
with a separate whole rule block for what happens if you get a boxcar leg destroyed.
Yeah, I from uh from a thematic, this is a cool moment. This is a
Mhm.
spectacle point of
Yep.
view. I like that the leg can be blown off from a game balance and streamlining point of view, it's like you said, more rules.
It's anti-streamlining.
Exactly. Yeah. It's putting in the engine explosions for funsies and adding in all the engine explosion text just because it's cool.
Right, yeah. And as an optional rule in TAC Ops, that's where that would belong, right? Because there's advanced crits in TAC Ops.
Yeah, and I agree with you wholeheartedly on this one. That doesn't need to be a thing. Losing your leg completely and just having it be destroyed in the new changes is just as bad. Like, I mean, it's still bad. It's
Yeah, they're both
why.
bad.
Yeah,
All the
it's
all the advantages and none of the like all the advantages of blowing off the leg are still going to be roughly the same. Your movement's going to be worse. Your piloting skills are going to be worse. It's just now you have more stuff to get through to get to the same place.
yeah. So let's go ahead and finish up with
Yeah,
cumulative leg PSR effects. So
yeah.
now,
Well,
I mean, they
it's,
probably should have made this number 8 because we need to talk about
yeah.
leg destruction
So
before we
with
can really get into the cumulative effects.
So yeah, with cumulative effects, when you take leg crits currently, this is where the boxcars comes in, right? When you take a boxcar, your leg is just destroyed. So you're not rolling crits. So you're not going to get cumulative leg effects, is my point where I was going with that. So if you
Exactly.
roll a 10 or 11, or you roll many, many crits and you confirm multiple crits, then that's where this rule comes into effect. Where if you deal many crits because you rolled a 10 or 11, and you apply them to your leg actuators that add to the PSRs, um, then you only make one piloting skill roll in like this extra rules convoluted way
Yeah. So
versus a
yeah,
crit is a crit and that's the end of it.
you keep all of the cumulative penalties for those actuators and hip crits and all
Yeah,
that, but you make only one roll. Period.
yeah,
Not one
right,
roll per crit.
right. And so my issue with,
Unless
well, yeah, I was
there's
gonna, yeah,
crits on the other leg, in which
yeah,
case you make a roll for each leg.
and the gyro and 20 damage because usually if you're taking a bunch of crits, it's because you took 20 damage, right?
Yep.
Because that's just how it works. And the thing is, uh, if they identified a problem where cumulative leg effects are a problem, where somebody's taking too many PSRs in the same round, well, guess what? They already fixed this problem with the foot change. Foot change doesn't count as a piloting skill roll. So you're getting less piloting skill rolls with leg damage now already because of the foot change. So this is a rule that adds to that doesn't really solve a problem. And it is just because you're still taking multiple PSRs in a turn, right? You're just
Yeah.
having an edge case where you take maybe fewer depending on what your crit rules are. But they still get worse as you take more crits. So you still have to track the crits. They still count for your total roll. It feels totally unnecessary to me as a rule. Like I feel like they solved this problem with the foot change.
Yeah. I mean, I don't hate it. It's just more text for
Yes,
slightly less rolling
I
from
agree. I
a
don't hate it.
yeah, it's not I like that. Okay, now I only have to make after getting completely Bozaked by something.
Yeah,
And that's just one roll that I got to worry about. I only have to make that 7 or 8 or 9 or whatever the number is.
yeah,
Instead of I have to make 4 rolls at 8. Oh
yeah.
yeah, there's zero chance I'm going to be falling. I'm going to be succeeding,
The thing
over
is,
the
though, if you
course.
had to make 4 rolls with the foot change already, you were still going to have to make multiple rolls with this new roll because 20 damage is still a separate roll, right? It's just it's only leg damage that is doing this. So it's just one of those things where it's a little niche. Like if I roll a leg attack on you and I get your hip and your lower leg actuator, right? So currently it's just 4 damage, right? It's 2 piloting skill rolls at +2, right? Uh, and but and if with this change, it's 1 piloting skill roll at +2. When you look at the odds, the your second piloting skill roll is worth less than the first one because the second one only happens if you made the first one, right? So let's say you have to make 4 piloting skill rolls, right? Versus with this change, you have to make 2 piloting skill rolls. The odds that those third and fourth piloting skill roll is going to matter is very small. So you're not like it feels like this is like a bigger thing than it is because you still have to have passed the multiple other piloting skill rolls you still need for this rule to matter.
Yeah, I mean, so let's say you take the crit to your hip and you take the
Mhm.
20 damage, you're still making 2 pilot checks
Yes,
straight up.
exactly. Right. And if you take a hip and a 20 damage and an upper leg actuator, you're making 3. But when you compare the odds of, okay, how many times am I going to fall with this change and without this change? It's a very tiny number because you're talking about only that third roll matters. Now, if they just had a blanket rule that says you only make 1 piloting skill roll in a turn, that would make a lot more sense
Or
because it wouldn't be
phase.
as
Yeah.
douche. Yeah, well, yeah, exactly, right? Because then, right, it would just be one single roll, and you just add everything up, and that's the end of it. But you're still making multiple. It's just you have this weird exception for legs, so it doesn't feel like it's adding any value.
Yeah, it's just an exception for that same leg
But
because
yeah, you're right, right. Because if you get
now,
on both legs, you're still making two. So yeah, it's just such a niche application that yes, it will come up in a game every blue moon that you made 3 piloting skill rolls, but you know, you would have failed the fourth, and this rule changed that. But that's like first you had to make 3 piloting skill rolls, because of damage to your gyro and your other leg, and now you only have to, it's just such a very small application. I just don't see the value.
I mean, on realistically, on average, you're gonna go from maybe 3 PSRs to 2 because you're
Yeah,
gonna be taking that 20 damage, and
right.
maybe you got a double crit on the leg, or you plinked it with a bunch of SRMs on an
Right.
awesome or something, and you nailed that
Yeah.
freaking, you nailed the leg and didn't happen to hit the stupid heat sinks that are in there, and you got 2 different actuator crits.
Yeah.
You're really just reducing the PSRs from 3 to 2, which
Now,
I mean is a nice quality of life change for
right.
the offended, you know?
But at the same time, this is not as bad of a problem with the foot change, right? Because the
Yeah,
foot, there was more things that you could crit that could cause PSRs. So this rule had more value without the foot change. With the foot change, a lot of the value is lost because you're going to
yeah,
hit that foot. If you're dealing, this only happens when you deal multiple crits, like you said, and you have to now not hit the foot and then the other ablative heat sinks. So
yeah,
if I,
if there's anything in there.
yeah, if there's anything in there. So if I make a leg attack on an awesome with my battle armor, right, and I roll a hip and an upper and a lower, and the awesome only has to make 1 piloting skill roll versus 2, right? Like the awesome's happy, but the battle armor's unhappy. So it's not a net positive for the game because one person is unhappy, the other person is happy. Like no matter how you do it, because they already are getting the bonus of the foot. So, like I say, if you did roll 2 crits on your leg and you got them to go to the places where they actually matter, you should be rewarded for that, right? Because
Yeah,
it otherwise, like you're still making multiple PSRs from 20 damage or from leg crits to the other leg and the first leg. So it's not removing the multiple. Like you'll still need, 3 piloting skill rolls or 4 piloting skill rolls in a turn. Like that's not changing.
yeah, it's literally just reducing edge cases from 3, possibly 4 PSRs to 2.
Right. Like if somebody comes up with a wolf pack of like 3 mechs and just starts stomping you like with 3 kicks and they get a couple leg hits, right? And they did 20 damage because there's 3 of them kicking you. Because I've easily caused like 7 piloting skill rolls on a mech before, right? And
Oh,
this
yeah.
rule will make you go from 7 to 6. 'Cause you still got kicked 3 times, you still took 20 damage, you still took leg actuator in multiple legs probably, right? Like that's not a fix, right?
It's it's a small band-aid for an
Yes.
edge case. That's all it is. I mean, and
Yeah.
I I mean, I fine, it's there. I
Mhm.
wish it was just one PSR.
Yeah,
If you want to
right?
speed up the game, leave it just one PSR. Don't make
That's
it per leg. Don't make it
yeah,
end because you took a gyro, end because you took 20 damage. Just make it
yes.
all cumulative and roll it out once and hope for the
Or
best.
yes. So yeah, exactly right. Like if you're going to make a rule change, like make a rule change. This is a non-change. It's adding text to the game for not real benefit. If they change it to just one PSR per turn, I'm fine with that because it's clean and it's a lot less words and you don't need an italic thing to explain what's happening, right? And if you think that it's not worth the very edge case, then just don't put it in and you still have 6 PSRs because you got kicked a bunch of times, right?
Yeah.
Like this isn't fixing the problem. It's just adding more rules, which is not the right direction, I think.
Yeah. And
Like
yeah,
if
I
they
think that
identified the
that's enough.
problem with multiple crits, you know what I mean? Like you said and I said, you can make it just one per turn. The weird leg restriction thing is just a way to confuse people, I think.
Yeah, it's just gonna make it take the same amount of time to resolve. And like, wait, hang
Yes.
on, which actuator did you hit this turn? Oh wait, hang on. No, that one was from earlier. Never mind.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's another great point. Yeah. So it's just a weird niche rule. I don't like weird niche rules being added to the game when they're trying to remove niche things like the +1 heat for standing. All
Yeah,
right, leg
absolutely.
destruction.
Okay, so we already touched on this a little bit. This
Yeah,
shouldn't be too long. There are some important distinctions. So mainly right here, it instead of being reduced down to one, you're now reduced down to half
yep,
uh, your normal walking speed, minimum loss of two, which
yep.
is added in from the hip hit, and you recalculate running, of course, as usual.
I like that because it makes it identical to a hip crit. That I'm on board with that.
And the next biggest change is now the PSR for having a destroyed leg goes down from 5 to 4. So it's still a steep penalty,
Mhm.
but it's just slightly more achievable.
Yeah. I actually don't like this only because if you were to crit out everything in the leg, it would be +3. And so like I can see it being different because it was blown off or whatever, or it was destroyed. But I think I prefer like, yeah, it's +3, comma, because all three leg actuators add up to 3. Does that make
I,
sense?
I get what you're saying. I just think that
Like 4 is
destroying the
better.
leg completely is the next step. Like, okay, well, you've hit everything that you could possibly hit in this leg,
Right.
and now it's destroyed. So now you get
Yeah.
that extra +1, and it's
Yeah.
already reduced to half because you already crit out the hip. Now
Right.
because it's all these structures gone, you get that extra +1 to your PSR. I
I
think
guess
that's fine.
when I look at it, the first bullet point is what happens with a hip crit. The third PSR, it's what happens with a hip crit. The fourth is the same as a hip crit. The only one that is not tied to the crits on the leg is the +4, which is like you said, I understand thematically why it's there, but I now that they tied the movement and the kicks and everything else so closely to the crit of the hip, I just like the idea, and hip crits are cumulative now, right? I just like the idea of it's +3. Why is it +3? Well, because when you lose all the actuators in your leg, it's +3. Like just from a new player point of view,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like if you can learn what the leg crits do, then you won't need the extra rules of what happens when your leg is destroyed because it's the same as you having none of those actuators.
So the only counterpoint I have to that is that now instead
Mhm.
you can, for leg destruction, you can just put C hip crit and change modify the PSR modifier to 4 instead of 3.
Yeah. No, that also is a good yes. That's another good way to look at it.
So if they group all of these leg crit,
Leg blown off, leg
effects, yeah,
destroyed. Yeah.
if they put them all together, they can just build on them as they're explaining the rules.
Yeah.
So they can start with foot and then go from there, and as it
Get
go
worse.
get worse from there. Exactly.
Yeah. And that kind of layout thing, I think would fix some of my issue with that. Uh,
Yeah,
because you have to look up, separately what a leg destroyed is. And that's why I didn't even know about it. But on the forum, there is yet another leg destroyed effect that they were going to add with a vote of
possibly.
yes or no, possibly.
Yeah, yeah,
Which, I mean, I'm already not liking how it's different. I'm fine with the hips. I think that it going to half movement is great. Uh,
yes,
I think that a 7-Eleven going to a 4-6 because it lost its leg is a good thing for the game. Because normally, if you're a 7-Eleven but you have 7 jump jets, right, you can stand up and then jump 7. Well, now, if you are 7-Eleven and you don't have jump jets, you can stand up and you could still move 6. So I think that this
yes.
is a very positive change for leg destruction. Um,
Yeah,
I
it
just
means
think the
that your
layout,
dasher is, I mean, it's probably not going to live the next turn, but there's
yeah,
at least a chance you can try
right.
and get to cover or something.
Versus a iron sparrow, when it loses a leg and then stands up, it can then jump 10 away. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like the
and
difference between a leg destroyed for a jumping mech and a non-jumping mech is too stark, which is why
absolutely.
I like that rule change to half.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly.
And then both legs destroyed. This is an exception. It says both legs destroyed is 0 and immobile. I obviously don't like that because we have rules for what happens when a leg is destroyed. We could have just applied them both, right? Half movement, -2, and then that's the end of it, right? +4 to PSR, plus another 4 to PSR. So you standing on your stumps would be effectively impossible. Um, but you wouldn't be immobile, right? But that
Yeah,
ties into the mobile change from above, which is like I just don't like things that are at 0 being immobile. So I don't like both legs destroyed making you 0 because I don't want to be immobile.
if both legs being destroyed meant you weren't it automatically labeled as immobile, thus earning yourself the -4 to hit
Yeah,
modifier,
yeah.
I would be okay with this.
Mhm.
Bringing you down to 0 MP. That's perfectly fine. You got no
Yeah,
legs. You're not going anywhere. That
right. You're
makes
not
perfect
moving.
sense.
Actually, I still like the idea of one movement but can't stand because I can absolutely envision in my head a mech turning by crawling on the ground. It
Yeah,
can't leave the hex, but it can change its facing by crawling around if it has arms.
the only yeah, I just say put it down, bring back the minimum 1 movement rule
Well,
and
yeah,
let them move for 1. Like you
and
could
let them
crawl to the
turn.
next damn hex if you really want to.
Well, and keep crawling tac ops, but this makes the crawling tac ops thing useless because you're immobile, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I
Unless
mean,
they do that weird thing where it's like, oh, but if you use crawling, that counts as a different movement, and then you're not immobile.
yeah, no, that's just a whole tech ops or whatever the
Yeah.
new book is going to be can of worms.
So yeah, I think that that's not a problem technically with the new leg destroyed rule. I just don't like how 0 MP and immobile is stacking. And so
Yes.
I just hate the idea of I got lucky and blew off both your legs and now you're immobile. And because you're immobile, you can still shoot, you know what I mean? But I can move through you, get behind you, and then you can't turn and I get aim shots on you, and then that's just night night. Like
Yeah. Getting the aim shots and the -4 modifier and all that is just
Mhm.
entirely too good. You can't be handing that out like candy, and it feels like the immobile change is doing that.
Because I guess my issue is that like who feels good about that, right? Like you lose both your mechs, you're already at 0, but then you could still shoot, you're not dead, but then you're also now immobile. Like it's like making a bad situation worse.
Yeah, it's a lose more. I mean,
Yeah.
being unable to move is already bad enough. You don't need the -4 to be shot modifier on
Right.
top of it.
Right. Especially, you know what I mean? Like I would be more okay if they were just both legs destroyed, take the mech off the table, right? Like
Yeah, I mean, at that point, you're dead anyway. You're
yeah.
dead with extra steps. I mean,
Yeah.
the pilot automatically flees because he knows he's gonna get shot next turn.
Right.
Something,
Yeah.
whatever.
You know what I mean? Like
Auto
it's just
eject kicks in, whatever it
yeah,
is.
right? Like it's rough. The immobile status is a pretty rough one.
Yeah, it's too harsh of a punishment for getting down to zero movement, and now it's entirely too easy to get down to zero movement.
Yes. Yeah. So
Oh,
anyway,
and
tripods are
tripods.
tripods are I'm fine with, like, that's just a clarification. I don't think that's actually different.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
I don't think so.
the part that's
Tripods aren't in
different is
the
the mobile.
battle mech manual.
Yeah, right. The the part that's different is the mobile, not the two legs destroyed. You can't move anymore, kind of thing.
Yeah, the immobile tag is what sucks.
Yeah.
And
The next one's near
quad
and dear to
mechs.
our hearts. Yeah.
Anytime a four-legged mech loses one or more legs in a phase, it falls, ends its movement for the turn. In addition, apply the following effects. So one leg destroyed, it loses all the benefits for being a quad mech, which makes sense because you're no longer a quad mech.
Hmm.
And you get the +2 or plus it acts as a hip crit, basically, if I'm not mistaken.
Uh, it's that's two leg. So the
Oh,
first
two
one,
legs.
yeah, you just lose all your quad bonuses. It's a lot of
Okay.
words to get to a weird place. The thing that's changed, and this is why I wish it was in red. Uh, Now, when you lose your leg, you get a -1 movement penalty,
There it is.
even though
Okay.
you have three legs left. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
that starts the new section.
yeah, and you keep the +4 modifier for jumping with a busted leg.
Destroyed leg. This is the part that I hate, because it's a weird exception that wasn't there before.
Yeah.
Before, it just said, a quad mech that loses its leg counts as a normal biped mech. And that's the end of the rules, right? All these are technically, the first part of that is just technically a reminder, right?
Yeah.
It's reminding you that you no longer have the -2 to piloting skill rules for a quad mech. It's reminding you that you don't get to
The
ignore the firing from prone bonus.
yeah, and you don't get to do the sidestep thing anymore, I
Yeah, and
don't
you don't
think.
get to decide. That's just a reminder. But then, so you've lost a mech, right? You've lost your quad bonuses. But now, in addition, to make quad mechs worse, you also get a -1 movement penalty. And if you jump, even though you can move normally, you have to take a +4 piloting skill roll for jumping with the destroyed leg. Like, why punish quads, right?
Yeah, I don't like this one bit.
Like it doesn't make sense to me. Like, because if you then look at the next one, two destroyed legs, look how clean that is, right? It's one line, apply the effects of a hip crit. And that's it.
That yeah, that makes sense. Okay, well you're down two legs. It doesn't specify which two legs. It just says
Yep.
lose two legs and you got a hip crit in addition to
Yeah.
whatever you had for having the one leg down.
So that's better than it used to be,
Yeah.
because before you counted as having you counted as missing a leg on a regular mech. So +5 to stand, which is now only +4, half movement. Uh, but that's like what it is with a hip crit anyway. So it's nice and clean. It references the hip crit. That was kind of, like I said, my complaint with leg destruction is that it's not referencing. It's basically the same thing as a hip crit, but it's not referencing a hip crit. It's just like repeating the same thing. That's why, like you were
Yeah.
saying, you can just put them all together in one section and then, you know, cut down on duplicate words.
Yeah.
So yeah, the 2, 3, and 4, I love, right? I think that that's fine, right?
Yeah, that
The
all makes perfect sense.
And it's nice, it's clean, it's short and sweet. The one destroyed leg is such a stark difference. And the first part is just saying you lose your quad bonuses and reiterating them. I think that could be done in an italic. You lose all
You
your quad bonuses.
you could
And then,
just say see page blank for
yeah,
quad bonuses.
or you could even put underneath, like that section in italics, a -2 to piloting skill rolls, plus you take the +2 in prone, yada yada, and you can't sidestep. Like, if you want to double up, do it in italics, not in the rules section. But then,
Agreed.
this +4 to jump coming out of nowhere, like that, it
That I don't like that at all. You're
yeah,
punishing quad mechs needlessly at this
right.
point.
Losing your first leg, with a quad is now worse than it used to be. And quad mechs aren't burning up the meta.
No, I mean they're already niche. You can't torso twist. They you
Right.
generally have less weapons and all that. You
And you're
can't
already
punch.
worse. Yeah.
Yeah,
You're
they're
already worse when you lost that leg because you lose all your cool bonuses, but you keep the no torso twist and all of that.
yeah. Uh,
So
it's essentially making losing an arm on a regular mech. uh, it's essentially losing one leg is like losing an arm on a quad mech. Or it's
yeah,
similar.
imagine if you
You
lost an arm on
you
your
mean what I
Wolverine.
know.
Yeah, if you
Yeah,
lost an arm on a Wolverine and then you took a +4 modifier for jumping.
yeah. That's
Like,
exactly what this feels like.
yeah, it's like why, right? Like what quad mech what did the quad mech do to you?
Right? Show me on the paper doll where the scorpion hurt you,
Right.
please.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
tarantula at this point, because I don't think the scorpion can jump.
Yeah, the tarantula. But like, and you're taking a -1 movement penalty. Like, why? Right? Like,
I
because
mean,
you're already losing. I get
yeah,
why.
I get it. You lost a leg. I'm okay with the -1 movement penalty. That I can live with. It's the +4 for jumping that I it's just making it a
So
big
let's
question mark.
yes. So let's say that you wanted to clean this up, right? So you could just like the way it is now, you lose a leg, it just counts as now you're a biped mech, and then it's the end of it, which means you lose your skitter side to side movement, you lose your prone shooting, and you lose your -2 to piloting skill rolls. Like if
Yeah.
you think that that's not enough, right, then you can uh, say that it's a foot crit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like just say, if a quad mech has a leg destroyed, it no longer counts for the quad bonuses. And then in addition, one destroyed leg, foot crit,
Yeah.
two destroyed legs, added a hip, three destroyed legs, add a
Yeah.
second hip.
That is so much more elegant than this. And it essentially covers the same exact thing that they're trying to do with significantly less words. I
And the
just really
not
don't like
clear
that
+4
+4.
penalty out of nowhere, right?
Yeah, that seems ridiculous. Okay, I get it. You've got a useless leg hanging onto the mech, but come on. That's like saying your arm is destroyed and now you can't run. Like,
Yeah.
really?
And foot crits still cause a piloting skill roll when you jump. So if you say it's a foot crit, right, your jumps are still worse.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like it does what like they're trying to say jumping with a quad mech is worse, right? Okay,
Yep.
well, so you have to make a piloting skill
Arbitrarily.
roll. Yeah, because you're missing a leg, counted as a foot crit. That includes your -1, and it makes your jumps a little worse. Now you get it's the same as a foot, but then with a weird +4 modifier from nowhere that also doesn't apply anywhere else. That's the
Yeah.
thing where it's like you read that rule and it's like, oh, with a +4 for losing a leg. It's like, oh, does that mean I always take a +4? Because it says apply the standard modifier for doing so with the destroyed leg.
Yeah, because up ahead or up above it says leg destruction +4
Yeah.
modifier to all piloting skill rolls.
Right. So does that mean that a quad with one leg destroyed has a +4 to its PSR? Because that's not in there.
No,
But
it says
then it's sort of in there.
yeah, this is real confusing because it says it still must make the usual PSR required for jumping, applying the standard +4 modifier for doing so with the destroyed leg. So, yeah, the way this reads, that standard +4 modifier applies to every single PSR you now have going forward as a quad mech because you lost one leg.
This is where my what is your intention, comes out. Because like, is that your intention? Like, I'm confused. I was, I don't know what you're trying to do here.
Yeah, I don't that +4 just needs to go, honestly.
Yeah.
This would be
So
these would be
the
good
thing
changes if that 4 wasn't there.
Yeah. Well, that's what is so frustrating is the 2, 3, and 4 just apply hip crit, right? Very succinct, super easy to understand, no text extra needed, right? But that one destroyed leg, it's like making me question so much.
Yeah, yeah. This has happened what the third time just reading through
Yeah.
this packet.
Yeah. So like I that just needs and that's not even a I can't even comment on the rule one way or the other. Obviously it's worse for quads. Like we can say that, but I can't say how worse it is because the intention is not clear to me.
Yeah, we can make some assumptions though. If that +4 only applies to jumping with a
Yeah,
broken
right.
leg, I mean, it still
Yeah,
sucks. But
yeah. It still sucks. But
the majority of quad mechs can't even jump. There's only a handful that
yeah.
can. So
So like my Scorpion goes from 6'9" to 5'8", right?
yeah, that's
Like
not a big deal.
I lose all my bonuses and I get a -1. Like, okay, if that's your intention, I don't like it because I don't think the Scorpion needs to be worse when it loses its first leg.
Yeah,
But whatever, it's not that bad because then I on the back end I get the 2 destroyed legs is better for the Scorpion than currently. But that's because the legs are different. It's just a hip crit, right?
yeah.
But now that +4, that's gonna like if I'm playtesting this rule, whether I have to use that +4 or not on my Scorpion is such a massively different way to play that rule that I can't say.
Well, I mean, if it is implied that you use it every time you make a PSR with one destroyed leg, period, it's bad. This is bad.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
it's implied that you only apply it when you jump, then it's still bad, but it's not as bad because
right.
it's an edge case that's only affecting a limited
A
number of
couple,
units
yes, and you could still use your normal movement.
without generating the PSR and all that with
Yes,
the plus
yeah,
four. If that
right,
is the intention, it's not that bad. I wish that +4 weren't there.
right. It still feels superfluous, but like, it's just such a weird way to word it that if it is there on a Scorpion, like, well, I mean, I definitely don't want to run a Scorpion anymore.
Yeah, quad mechs are dead, and you're only running it because you want to be unique. That's it,
Right,
or
because if
because
you
you
have to
don't
pick
have a
up
choice.
right, because you lose all your quad bonuses on one destroyed leg, and you'd have a +4 modifier to stand. Like, oof,
Screw that.
yeah, because and then it just gets worse from there because you have more legs that can be crit.
Yeah, that I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt and say that it probably only applies to jumping because they specifically call out PSR required for jumping applying the +4.
Yeah,
They don't call it out for any of the other PSR or any of the other portion of it when it says it loses the -2 modifier. It doesn't say and is replaced by the standard +4. So I'm I'm ambivalent to crying the sky is falling, but I still don't like that +4 even in the best case scenario that +4 still sucks.
yeah, right. Even if, like on your Snow Fox, even if it doesn't apply to your Snow Fox, it's like, well, why punish the tarantula, right,
Yeah.
for jumping?
What did the tarantula do to you, man?
Right. Because the difference between a PSR for making a jump like a foot crit and a PSR with a +4, it like that's such a big swing.
Yeah, and you can still kick if I'm
Mhm.
not mistaken, right?
Yeah,
At
you can.
least in the opposite end.
Uh,
It
well,
doesn't say you can't.
see, that's the problem, right? If we apply the standard leg destroyed rules, then you can't. But then where does that +4 come from otherwise? Because leg destruction cannot make
Yeah,
kicks. You
it
know what I
says you
mean?
cannot make kicks, period, if you have a leg destroyed. If that's the case, that super sucks. Because now you're
But
better off
yeah,
getting, yeah, you wish you got hip crit twice in the back legs. You could still kick with your front.
yeah, it like because the only way that +4 applies is if the no kicking also applies. So it's just I think this is just they need to fix the wording before we
Absolutely.
can, because currently there's no like I can't objectively rate it other than it's bad. It's bad writing because I'm confused, and then we don't need to make quad mix bad. So it's just doubly
Yeah.
bad in my opinion.
As a quad enjoyer, I wholeheartedly agree. They don't need to be punished any more than they already are for existing.
Yeah,
All right. I
and then
think we've harped on
the
that
quad.
more
Yeah,
than enough.
right. That it's just like you got to get into the nitty gritty for some of these things.
Oh, I'm. This is why we're here to get into the
Yeah.
nitty gritty. And then last and definitely not least, number 9, standing PSRs. The
Okay.
modifier to the PSR required to stand up is changed from +0 to -1. If the standing attempt fails and the mech falls again, this modifier is also applied to the PSR required to avoid damage to the mech warrior, the seatbelt check.
Yeah. So this is such a funny one for me because it's kind of, I think it sums up my problems with the writing style. Uh, the rule change by itself is a good one, right? But if you look at this rule and then you scroll up to the gyro, you know what the gyro thing doesn't say? It and it doesn't need to say? It doesn't need to say the +2 modifier is also applied to the seatbelt check. It doesn't need to say that because that's just the normal rule.
Yep.
So he's adding the thing that the -1 applies to seatbelt checks, but like that's not new, and that doesn't need to be there, and that makes that statement more confusing to me because it's like, oh, well, are other things not supposed to? Because this says this is also applied to the PSR. Does that mean that there's other PSR modifiers that are not applied? Like, no, that's not what that means. It's just a completely superfluous line that makes it more confusing as a rule to me.
Yep. I mean, you could just delete all of that line of text
And
and nothing would
it's
change.
in fact, I would be less confused.
Yeah. Second time in this
Yeah.
packet.
So that, but the thing is, I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. This is where that italics comes in, right? You can put, if you
Yes.
want to clarify something, right? You put in italics, like in conversational thing. Don't forget, all modifiers to piloting skill roll also apply to the seatbelt check. Therefore, when you fail your stand, right, with a -1, that also means your seatbelt check's only at a -1, right? Like put that in italics as a reminder to the player, like the frequently asked questions in the back of the book, right? That's where that kind of thing belongs. But by putting in the actual rule, it's just making you question piloting skill roll modifiers and seatbelt checks. And I don't think that's good, right? It's just adding confusing text that
Yeah.
doesn't need to be there. In
Yeah.
the actual
Absolutely.
rule book, the way that that rule is going to be listed, for example, you're just going to have your list of piloting skill like you do now. Like if you look in the thing, and it's just going to go from 0 to -1, right? That whole section, I don't think all of those words aren't actually going to be in the actual rule book because all it
Yeah.
is just changing a 0 to a 1 on the chart that shows you what your piloting skill rules are. So I kind of give him a pass on this, even though I think the wording is bad, because I don't. That shouldn't be what is in the rule book anyway.
Yeah. I understand what you mean. It's just this shouldn't ever make it to the actual rule text. This is here for clarification purposes and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have all this room at the bottom of the page that they didn't utilize to add
Yeah.
that in. I mean, it's a 5-page PDF. By all means, use as much italic, explanatory text as you want, but leave the rule wording as concise and specific as possible.
Right. Yeah. Because that I actually had to look up the rule, and I was looking through the modifiers because I'm like, wait, this modifier is also. Was I doing that wrong before? That's I had to look it up. Like in the Battletech manual, like is the seatbelt check somehow different? Like maybe I was wrong. And no, it says the when you make a seatbelt check, you use all the same modifiers that from the piloting skill roll with the additional modifiers for if you fell extra levels, it gets even worse. So
Exactly.
like, so that rule's already there, but by putting it there again, I it made me think that I was doing something wrong, and I had to go back and check, and it's like, no, it's just an unnecessary rule that confused me. Yeah, but this is what I think the actual rule is going to be, where it says Mex action, right? Miss kick 0, right? And then made successful charging, attempted to stand 0, right? I think the actual rule is just going to be that 0 to a -1 because
Yeah,
that's
that's all
all
it
that
is.
rule needs to be, right? And then the gyro, it's going to be a 3 to a 2.
Yep. I mean, if you've ever read a video game change log where they're making
Yeah.
balance updates, that is what these should read like.
Yeah. And in fact, I would have like because you were saying the visual, like you could have for the play test purposes, you could have just put that a screenshot of this, right? Attempted to stand 0 and then attempted to stand in red -1.
Exactly. Yes. Like old chart, new chart, like
Yes, exactly.
simple.
Yep. That's just like it's a minor thing, but it's kind of like my issue with a lot of the document. So I thought closing on that one, like it's such a good rules change, I think, uh, because of the flops and things like that. I think it makes sense narratively. I think it makes sense from a gameplay point of view. And I think the rules text confused me for no reason. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's the trifecta.
All right. So we've gone through all 9 of these changes. Now, what do you think these changes are going to mean as a whole? Because you're supposed to play with all of these together.
Yeah. So as I review uh, each one, I'm going to leave water for last. Uh, gyro, positive change. Not as big of an impact, but it does make an impact. Um, the foot crits, I think it's a good thing. I think it could have been simplified. Um, and maybe it will be, right? Like you said, layout, even if they don't change any of the rules, like you said, if they just lay it out visually, like here's your leg, here's the crits in the leg, here's what each one does in an order instead of like alphabetical, right? I think that would fix some of my complaints with the foot crit change. Um, hip crits, I think that the stacking piloting skill roll, because before it was just +2 all the time. Now it's +1, but all your other PSRs in that leg count. I think you get to the same place, but it's a net positive for the people who take that one unlucky hip crit early on. Because now in that one case, it's only a +1. So that one unlucky tack is a little easier to stomach. But I think the -2, the fixed -2 is bad because of the mobile changes. The
Agreed.
cumulative leg PSR, like it's just wordy and it doesn't stop multiple PSRs in a turn. So like if their intention was to stop multiple PSRs in a turn, that failed. It's not, and it's also not a rule that makes the game simpler. It's actually adding to the rules text of the game. So it's like not solving a problem and creating more rules. Like it is better for the player, it's worse for the attacker. So that is like a net whatever, but it's just, but you needed more text to get there. Um, leg destruction, I like the changes to leg destruction, except for quads. I think the leg destruction giving you some movement, if you have movement, just helps balance the difference between jump jet mechs and regular mechs. Uh, but quads, I like are worse for no reason with one destroyed legs. And then standing PSRs, positive change. Uh, so the reason why I wanted to talk about my water summary, that extra piloting skill roll you get for standing, combined with that weird word change where it's like when you stand up, you don't take a piloting skill roll. It's like, he already clarified that. I think we're going to get another playtest thing that clears that up. Um,
Yeah,
but
he
like,
said that there would be a another release to fix some of these wordings.
okay, that kind of solves some of my problem. Uh, because currently, as it stands, you just don't make a piloting skill roll when you're in the water to stand, which is just weird. It doesn't flow.
Yeah,
But
it does say or making facing changes as
right.
well within a water
Uh,
hex. So
so here's the example for water that for my summary that I wanted to ask you. You have a mission where you have to get off the map, right? And on one side, there's a depth 2 lake. And on the other side, there's a heavy forest. The number of hexes that you're going to have to move through are the exact same, right? They changed water to try and make the mobility of it better. So now, with this new change, are you going to move through the depth 2 lake or are you going to go through the heavy forest? And I know
if
what
you're
my answer
retreating off the map, you're going
is.
through that lake because you can't get shot while you're in that lake.
Well, you can't get shot when you're in the forest either because it blocks
Well,
line of sight.
well, it depends. They're if they have elevation, they can still shoot you, et cetera, et cetera.
True, true.
The
So,
water guarantees no shots unless they're also in the water.
right. But then you have breach checks and you have, if you're running, because you're trying to get off the board as fast as possible, you have piloting skill rolls every hex along the way.
True. It depends on the piloting skill of the mech. If it's a 4-5, yeah, I'm taking the woods. I don't want to make those fall checks.
Right. So that's kind of where I'm at with water. Where if I have to cross through a heavy forest, where I'm going to be get too like I can be shot. You're right if somebody's on elevation, but it's +2 for me being in heavy woods and +2 for the heavy woods that I'm right next to, plus the range. So it's like okay, I can be shot, but it's a +4 versus the water where I can't run unless I want to make a ton of PSRs. I'm also going to choose the heavy woods every time. But then on top of that, if I do take damage in the water, I still have to worry about all the breach checks, which is doubly terrible.
True.
So I don't see myself ever, I still don't see myself choosing to go through water versus the forest.
Yeah, I at least with depth 2. With depth
Yeah,
1, yeah, I'll take the depth 1 water, especially if I'm in a quad mech, because not only do I get the cover bonus, I also
right.
can't be shot in any of my 4 legs.
Yeah. So with the depth one, it like, because now this is kind of my thing, right? Like it's only one MP, whereas depth two is two and heavy woods are two. So
Yeah.
like depth one is like if you compare them to light woods, right? Like depth one water is kind of playable, right? I don't mind moving into depth one water as much now.
Yeah.
Um, that's a good thing. And if you run in depth one water, it's still going to be terrible because if you fall, you're still full breach. It's still going to suck, but it's not as punishing. Um, but like with depth two water, I'm still like I still am going to stay away from it. And if somebody comes in there to shoot me with depth two water, like it's still going to suck. The breach checks are still the biggest problem. If I have an open location, you just can't go in water still. So it doesn't fix that issue with the flooding.
Oh,
So like,
absolutely.
so I think that like even though water is better to move through, it's still so bad to be caught in water and have the breach thing happen to you that it's still the trap place. I still would rather jump my little butt through those heavy woods than jump through. You can't even jump in water, but
Uh,
I'm not going to be happy running through water. Like I'd rather run through a heavy forest.
yeah. And the majority of the time, yeah. If you have a 4-3 pilot, on the other hand, I
Yeah,
might
or a quad,
risk the
like you
water.
said, because you get
Or a
the
quad, because you get the
yeah,
-2. Exactly.
right. Or like yeah, AES. But that's the same as it is
That's the
now.
exception. Yeah.
Because now you can still like if you have a really high piloting skill, you can still kind of zip through water pretty quick, right? Now you can
Yeah.
run in water, but like it doesn't matter because the thing that was holding you back from water was the breach and the piloting skill rolls, and we still have breach and we still have piloting skill rolls. So I
Yeah.
like
It,
that's
it, it
kind of where my review
yeah.
of these changes is.
Yeah, so my take on the water, since I'll pick up from where you put it down,
Yeah,
is it makes it so that I now kind of consider the water in edge cases, whereas before I would never bother going anywhere near it.
right.
And that's
Uh,
the only major change. Quad mechs, especially anything with exceptional piloting, now has a decent chance of getting through water unscathed.
And then I compare these rules to Alpha Strike, right? In Alpha Strike, they just get rid of the PSR entirely. And in Alpha Strike, I know from playing it that water is a lot more playable. You could still
Yes.
have breach checks, but unless you're fully submerged, your breach checks you ignore with a normal pilot on a 6 or higher, I think it is, because it's a skill check +2. So it's like you ignore most of the breach checks when you're in water. There's no piloting skill roll to it. It gives you partial cover still. So uh, these rules don't make me happy to go in water like I am happy to go in water in Alpha Strike.
Yeah, I agree. If they got rid of that PSR for running through water, I
Yeah.
would consider water on a regular basis instead of in edge cases.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Like uh, it's the piloting skill roll that's holding me back, not the walking versus running. Like, I don't care about that part,
Yeah,
honestly.
or the extra movement. I mean, it is what it is. You're
Yeah,
already
yeah,
getting that through going in and out of woods.
yeah.
Uh,
And having a +2 movement penalty, like, you're not really making a great progress through the water anyway. So it's like running or walking, like, it doesn't you're still going slow, so who cares?
yeah. No, and so some of these other changes,
But yeah, that was my
cumulatively, yeah, cumulatively, a lot of these changes I think are net positive, like the gyro,
Mhm.
the lessening of the hip or losing destruction of a leg.
Yep,
All of these kind of add up to meaning that when it comes to taking PSRs or forced PSRs from taking 20 damage, etc., your piloting will go a little bit further. So getting that skill 4 down is, or that piloting down to skill 4 is going to make more of a difference now because those modifiers are all slightly less than they used to be,
yeah.
mostly individually.
Yeah, if
Uh,
you're on the, 7 or less needed to roll, you're on the good side uh, of the 2d6 bell curve.
yeah,
So,
this
like,
is a huge change for 4-3 melee mechs.
yeah,
Absolutely. They will thrive with these changes. Yeah, you landing that DFA, landing that charge is now even more likely because even if you do get a gyro attack or a hip crit, the penalty to that PSR is still achievable.
right. Like 20 damage and a gyro crit on your, Highlander that's trying to make a DFA. If you were a 4/3 like your example, well, it's a 6 versus before a gyro and 20 damage would be a 7, and,
Yep.
like, you're starting to get to the point where, um like being every die roll less than 7 is just a good place to be on a 2d6 curve.
Yeah. Getting to the 6 breakpoint, I think, is huge.
Yeah, because you can start, like you said, actually counting on it. It's like, okay, he might hit me, he might do 20 damage and a gyro if I'm unlucky, but I'm probably still gonna be able to land this DFA. I gave up my whole turn for it. So
Yeah. So it's a little bit easier to land those, physical attacks.
mhm.
Overall, with dedicated melee mechs, it's a little more consistent, which I think is fine because melee is generally viewed as niche.
And also, like,
Uh,
if your charger it loses its leg, right? Well, it's still a 3/5 now. And if it was a melee mech, with a +4, like you said, your 4/3 charger loses a leg. Well, it goes from 5/8 to 3/5, right? But it can still move 3/5, and with a +4 to PSR, to stand back up with the combined total, if you were 3 base, +4 for no leg, -1 for standing, that's that 6 you were talking about.
yep.
So you only need a 6 to stand in that situation. That means that your charger's still in the fight.
Yeah. And the next big thing is the immobile definition. I dislike. It's entirely too easy to get categorized as immobile, and it
Mhm.
should be something that's reserved for mechs that are shut down or unconscious.
Yeah.
And that it should just remain as an edge case for those situations. Everything else at 0 MP should not be considered immobile because the mech is still flopping around at least a little bit.
And this is also where I had in my notes, like, this immobile change, it I know the playtest says mech only, right? But this immobile change has implications outside, because vehicles go down to 0 MP but are not immobile, and now they will be. And that, like, this immobile change, yes, it makes mechs worse, but you have to, like, grind through the mech to get those crits unless you're like a really slow mech. But vehicles lose their MP all the time, right?
Yep.
And they don't need to be made worse, right? And so this immobile change, we're not supposed to talk about vehicles, right? It says it's mech only, but it's clearly going to make vehicles worse as well. Like, there are knock-on effects to this immobile thing that make a lot of these other rules changes like, oh, this would be okay except for immobile sucks, you know?
Yeah, and the fact that immobile units now also can't even be used as initiative sinks
Right.
without the super front loaded initiative added in this packet, which honestly should have been in here if they're going to do a big change to a mobile like this.
Yeah.
Uh,
Where else do they put initiative, right?
exactly. Yeah. It's part of mech movement. This should be initiative is determines your movement.
Yeah.
So this is just a bad change, period. It's just to lose more
Yeah.
unless it's a negligible difference. That's the only
Right.
thing I have to say, which I already said earlier. And I mean, overall, it's just gonna make games go quicker. I think things are just gonna die because now all of a sudden, anything with it's gonna make things that are 2, 3 a little bit more risky to bring because now they're yeah you're paying for a ton of that armor on the annihilator. You're not really getting a TMM, but not having a TMM is a lot different from having a -4 TMM.
Yeah. Like you took 2 foot crits and now you're immobile.
Exactly, and that's just kind of asinine.
Yeah. It's rough. That's the that's the where I'm at too, where it's like the immobile thing is the part that, like, when you look at all these, uh because we did a pretty in-depth analysis before with like the damage changes and stuff like that. But the immobile change is the kind of change where it's really hard because when it happens, like you said, it's a lose more, right? You already took a couple crits, but now you're immobile, right? And you weren't immobile before, but now you don't count for initiative, which can be really punishing. Uh, you are super easy to hit, and they can do targeted locations, and there's more ways to get a mobile now. So,
Yeah,
but all the other that I guess this is where the mixed message comes in, because all the other changes lead towards more survivability, right? A
yeah,
gyro is only a +2. The standing is a -1. Your leg destroyed is only half movement, right? Everything else is kind of like, yeah, keep you in the fight, keep the game mobile, keep the game moving. Oh, except for in this situation where you're mobile, in which case the game comes to a screeching halt and you get aim shot in the head and die.
yeah. It's just a dichotomy between these changes that is making it really hard to swallow this one. I have to assume they've got to be rolling out that super front loaded initiative for this mobile change to make any sense and not just be why the hell are you doing this to us?
Yeah. And then the stealth changes, which are the leg destroyed thing. Um, like narratively, I understand blowing a leg off, but the way that the rule book is like already, like, a lot of these changes are adding things, which, I said I don't like. I don't like the idea of there being even more rules. I think it's narratively fun. If you roll a box car, it does something different, but it doesn't come up enough in games, and you're going to have to stop your game and look it up to see what the difference is. You and I, we've been playing long enough, it's not going to affect us, right? But it's a
Yeah,
low impact change for us, right? These changes should be new player friendly, and that's not a new player friendly change in my opinion.
yeah. I think just going with you rolled a 12, the leg is destroyed,
Yep.
period, is good
We,
enough. I mean, that's
yeah,
already bad. You're already
yeah,
at half
yeah,
move. You're already at +4
yeah.
to PSR. All that bad stuff is still there. It's bad
Let's make it
enough.
worse.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be worse. Just
Yeah,
like being immobile.
yeah. Yeah, you went through all of this change to make a leg destroyed, like keep you in the fight and not be a death sentence, just to put it back in. And so it's like, why? Why are you
Yeah,
taking a step forward and then a step back?
exactly. That's exactly what it feels like.
So yeah, as an optional rule in the advanced crits part of TAC Ops, sure, I won't play with that rule, but like that's where that kind of rule belongs.
Oh yeah, when I run a campaign, that rule is absolutely going to be
Yeah,
on because
yeah.
people should be able to pick up legs and beat other mechs to death with them.
Well, you can still do that, right? It's just the in-game effect. The mech that got its leg blown off is now just only 1 MP and +5 to PSRs, right? Where versus you get your leg box card, your leg falls off, somebody else can pick it up. But like for game rules, your half movement for having only one leg and hopping around, and +4.
Yeah, I get the disconnect there, where it's like, well, how do I still have my leg and he's also beating me to death with it? So
Yeah, so that's the perfect TAC Ops advanced rule thing where it's like, hey, let's make this a little more simulationist by adding these extra rules, but we understand they're optional because you probably don't need to like go into this level of detail.
yeah,
That's like
so
that's why I think TAC Ops is great, right? For optional simulationist stuff that
exactly, reckless movement, all that other stuff.
yeah, right. So yeah, that's just my thing. I agree with you that the immobile change has far-reaching effects that this
Yeah,
playtest isn't doing a good job covering.
yeah, I think this is almost as bad as the side arc change, to where you can just burn through mechs, and this
Yeah,
is going to make us, you can just burn through anything that happens to get down to 0 MP through any
right.
number of means.
The thing is that the side arc change that happened because your opponent like positioned, and so even though the new side arc rules are really deadly, it's as a consequence of your opponent doing something proactive. Your opponent didn't do anything proactive. He just rolled and got lucky to get the exact combination of crits to make you 0 MP, and now you're going to be killed, right?
Yeah,
Like there was no player skill that your opponent used to apply that rule. It's just like you said, a lose more. Your opponent was already up because he got some crits, and then he's super up, not because of anything he did, but just because he got lucky in a specific way, and now you're boned.
yeah, from an ending the game perspective, I mean, it's definitely going to make the game quicker. uh,
Yeah,
for slow units that happen to get those leg crits and go down to 0 MP, their game's going to end real fast.
right.
But I think it's a little too fast, and it's
Yeah.
just way too easy to get down to 0 MP now with the new hip crit.
Because if you play 1,000 games, right, the combination where you're reduced to 0 MP on like a normal unit is going to be pretty low. But like you said, like a 3-5 mech, a 4-6 mech, it's it's much higher, and so you're gonna see those now at 0 MP, immobilized, and then just sniped out way before their time. Uh, Versus like your 7-Elevens, it's not affecting them. Um, and it's not anything that has to do with player skill. It's just they happen to roll the exact combination of crits that bring you down to 0.
Yeah, and this coupled with those ammo explosion changes, I
Right.
think, now that we have two playtest packets out, I kind of see why they're okay with some things like the ammo explosions for assault mechs, when, oh hey, yeah, if you get hipped, you're basically a sitting duck now, so good luck.
Yeah. But the problem is that the amount of times that the hip thing applies to not annihilators, right? The annihilator and the urban mech, we shouldn't count those, but like a 3-5 mech,
Yeah,
right?
like this
The amount of
marauder.
times that it's going to apply to a 3-5 or a 4-6 mech is much lower than what the side table is doing, right? Because
Absolutely.
you need multiple crits that are not a boxcar in order for the immobilized thing to come into effect. And so that usually means you got lucky somewhere along the way, right? Because if you move into this side because you're like, oh hey, I want to focus damage on this leg to get some crits. Like, okay, great. That is never going to add up to enough, right? Normally, for you to be immobilized. You're likely to burn through their side torso, right? Almost guaranteed because of just how much more likely that is to hit. So this is only going to come up when you get like the lucky leg attack, or your opponent rolls their mask and then just gets a couple hip crits, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
because
imagine failing mask on turn one with your
yeah,
dasher and getting double hip crit, and you're just like,
yeah,
well,
yeah. So it's like the amount of times where uh, these new rules are going to make you immobile. It's like not something your opponent did to you. It's just like some really extraordinary luck, which is why it feels a lot more negative. Because when it happens, it's going to be off of bullshit, right? I in
yeah,
the other thing I came up with the bullshit count where it's like, hey, when something really bad happens to you early on in the game. So like if they've grinded through your whole mech to make you immobile, like there's other problems because your
Yeah,
legs
they've
are pretty.
earned it.
Yeah, they've earned it, right? It's the early immobilizations off of nonsense that I think this new immobile rule is really going to punish, because like every other rule is making like those early crits not as bad, right? You take a single hip crit from whatever through armor crit effect, it's only a +1 to your PSR now, right? It's trying to say, okay, yeah, it's making it less. And then here comes the immobile thing and just like, ha, you thought it was better? No, smash. You're toast.
Yeah, it wouldn't be so bad. Like I could get on board with a mobile mechs not counting for initiative if
Hmm.
they left a mobile mechs at you know,
Knocked
unconscious
out.
pilots
Yeah.
and yeah, and shut down. If they left it at that, I would be fine. Like, okay, that makes sense. They literally have no option to do anything. They
Yeah.
can't even eject. By all means, that's fine. They don't count for initiative or shooting for the whole turn. Perfectly fine. That makes sense.
But your
The fact
Thunderbolt that took a couple leg and foot crits, that's now immobile, that can still shoot and is still standing.
that can still jump if it has jump
Yeah.
jets.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's
That
just like really, really nonsensical.
and also the fact that the minimum one movement has been stealth removed.
Right.
That I think is bigger because
Yeah.
if they left that in, this immobile thing wouldn't be so bad because you at least have one if you
So you're
still
not
have.
immobile. Right.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
now
You
you're
can
not
get it.
immobile as long as you can move that one hex and you keep your
Yeah.
minimum.
Yeah. So it's like it's not going to come up often, but when it does come up, it's going to feel so negative. It's like, what do you mean
Oh
I'm
yeah.
immobile? My Thunderbolt just took a couple leg crits. Like it's not even like you didn't even get through the armor potentially. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, but it adds up to -4, and so therefore you're immobile,
Yeah,
and now you're dead. It's like this is lame.
and it's going to mean leg attacks from battle armor are going to go up in stock.
Yep,
Stuff like that is going to be better.
right. They're worse until they are way better. You know what I mean? Like your
Yeah.
first hip crit, not as bad, but then your second hip crit on that Thunderbolt, super deadly.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
just weird. Like, what's your intention? What are you trying to do? Because it doesn't feel like it's working as intended. But anyway, I think we've rattled on enough.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure we've gone in circles at least twice.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just how passionate we are about these.
Hmm. And this is one of those things where uh, the play test is tough because we're missing. You know, the I was much better able to play test the first packet um, than this one. This one is going to be harder to play test. There's a lot going on, and when I apply the crits to my players and then make them immobile, that's not going to be a good thing on the table, right? Like if I take a bunch of battle armor and then immobilize somebody's assault mech, like I don't think they're going to be happy with the change. But I think that reading the change, they're going to be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Because until you actually see this very rare condition happen against you, you know, it's like, oh, whatever.
Yeah, and it is going to be edge cases. We know that, but you get enough games under your belt, and those edge cases happen
Yes.
with more with more frequency
Yeah.
than you might assume.
But if I play 3 playtest games with this, right? I don't think I'm like 3 games is a lot for normal BattleTech people, right? But I don't think that's enough games to
You may never
cover.
get a leg crit. Period.
Yeah, right, exactly. And so, what is my feedback? Like, yeah, the leg crits are fine. Like, I didn't get enough for it to apply. Or if I play one game and it does apply, that's going to color my entire perception. It's like, oh man, those new leg crits with the immobile are super deadly
Yep.
because for the people that it happens to, it's going to be like crazy noticeable.
Yeah, it's going to stand out far more.
Yeah. But then the other 9 people who play a game, it's not going to come up and they're going to be like, it's whatever. I didn't even come up.
Yeah, so I think once we're done here, well, it's bedtime for me, but
Yeah, yeah.
tomorrow morning, I'm going to go to the forums and, write out a decent sized post about some of the intentions here and about how, show me on the paper doll where the quad mech hurt you and all that.
Yeah. Well, just some clarification. Like we desperately need some clarification. And apparently, like you said, some clarification's already in the works because it's
Yeah.
confusing.
Yeah. And Zodal is being fairly responsive. He's,
Yeah.
responding to questions on a fairly regular cadence. As long as the question makes sense, there's been a couple of questions where even I was scratching my head like, wait, what are you asking?
Right. But yeah, so the fact that he's already putting out updates to fix wording is a good sign because I think we're going to get another packet with a lot of this bad wording fixed.
Yeah, that'll make it go a lot quicker or a lot smoother to take in some of these changes.
Hmm. Yeah, thanks for chatting with me and going on and on. I
Oh
love
no.
this kind of stuff.
Oh, me too. I love game balance changes and game design in general. So I could talk with you about this all night, Brad.
Well, we
That's part
did.
of the
We did talk
problem. We
all night.
did.
Yeah, it's super late now, so we both got to go.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll talk to you later. Thanks again,
Yep.
Brad.
Thank you.
See
Bye.
you in the next one.